This week, Mrs. Disgruntled and I were meant to be on holiday in Italy, but then COVID happened, so instead of jetting off to southern Europe, instead we had a long weekend in the Lake District. But rather than staying in a normal hotel, we stayed at a castle, naturally, because I'm fucking classy. And we arrived in our Mini Clubman Cooper S with private registration and immediately began to blend in, and within an hour I was wandering around the grounds with a flat cap and green wellies, acting like I owned the place. The place where we stayed is called Muncaster Castle, and like most stately homes it costs a fortune to run, and the only way the aristocracy can keep these places ticking over is they have to open it up to peasants like me. There's a sign here that reads "The Castle," just in case you didn't notice that. And on our first day, Mrs. Disgruntled and I took a guided tour of the castle, made our way through the maze and watched a falconry display. All of the things which remind us that we British are vastly superior to those ghastly greasy foreigners who live on the continent. And before we went to dinner, I wanted to take a shower, but regrettably I couldn't get the shower to work, so after 5 minutes fiddling around with it, feeling somewhat emasculated, I made my way down to reception, and the receptionist got on the radio and then informed me, if you go back to your room, Iona will be with you in a moment. Hearing the name Iona, well, I think that her parents just didn't know how to spell Fiona, but there are two possibilities to someone having that type of name. Either she comes from a long line of dull scrounging scum and lives in a council house with her 6 brothers and sisters, all of whom will have different fathers and a dog called Tyson, or her family are extremely rich and her parents have called her Iona because they're members of the aristocracy and they do what they fucking like. And it's the latter of these two possibilities which was the case, because I'd been on the tour, so I now knew the person coming to fix our shower was Lady Iona Frost Pennington, and she owns the castle. So I went back to the room, and it's probably the most nervous I've been in a hotel, given that I've already paid to be there, as I'm waiting for this woman to come up and show me how to use a sodding tap, knowing that she's on first name terms with the royal family and probably doesn't have to deal with plebs like me. It's not even like I could take a shower to clean myself up. Anyway, she arrived and got the shower working in a matter of seconds. It transpires, to make it work, what you need to do is belt it one while speaking with received pronunciation. But the way that Lady Frost Pennington was dressed gave away that she's proper aristocracy. On television, particularly American television, we're led to believe that the nobility parade around everywhere wearing ball gowns and tiaras, but nothing is further from the truth. Real members of the aristocracy tend to dress like they've just climbed out of a skip. They'll be wearing dirty jeans or leggings, muddy Wellington boots with half a dozen dogs following them around, and although they may well have a Rolls Royce or a long wheelbase Daimler limousine, they tend to rag around in a fucked old Subaru. And why would you get dressed up when your day consists of walking around your massive estate, getting mud up you and blowing the heads off anything you don't like the look of, whether that be invasive wildlife or members of the working class? However, despite the very obvious class divide, she was thoroughly polite and pleasant. And by the end of the weekend we were chatting on first name terms, so now I'm in with a member of the aristocracy. So today on my walk I've been letting the peasants know that I'm better than them. But after our first night at the castle, in the morning I went to turn on the television. And it didn't work. So I had to go back down to reception, this moron who the previous day couldn't work a shower, to explain I don't know how to use a fucking remote control. So a well-spoken chap came up to the room, fiddled about with some cables and played with the remote control, and in a few minutes the TV was working. And I went to apologise, say, look, sorry, I do know how to use a TV, and he said, don't worry, it's tomfool. The term tomfoolery, meaning to mess around or be mischievous, is named after Thomas Skelton, the last fool of Muncaster. And there's a legend that he haunts the castle, so whenever anything goes wrong, they just blame the fucking ghost. And I think that sums up what it is to be an English noble. Because one of their ancestors killed someone important several hundred years ago, they get to live in a sodding great castle, paid for by a combination of English heritage and tourism, wearing clothes that a charity shop would throw out, and generally acting like they're as mad as a badger. But in saying all that, the wife and I had a lovely time and we're going back next year. If you've watched this channel before, you may know that I'm an ordained minister. So I think I'm going to start going by the title Reverend, because next time I go to a stately home, I'll fit right in. It'll be like living in an episode of Poirot. The episode of Poirot where the vicar is a foul-mouthed, heavily tattooed metalhead. Bugger me backwards, it's a bloody nice gaff you've got here, your lordship. Right, I'm off down the church to give me fucking sermon. But Mrs. Disgruntled and I are back now, and there's a saying, the best part of a holiday is coming home. Whoever came up with that didn't live in Stoke-on-Trent. Thanks for watching.